I would like very much to talk about a subject that's extremely close to my heart these days. It's the subject of iodine and aging. There was a very interesting study done a few years ago about the levels of iodine in the brain of various subjects. These were done at autopsy. And the study comments that iodine showed very heterogeneous distribution across the different brain regions. That is more or less the same distribution across various areas of the brain. However, the frontal cortex, the caudate nucleus, and the putamen show the highest levels of iodine. And interestingly, these brain regions are closely related to cognitive function. This makes an extremely interesting and I would say really very important point. And that point is that the parts of the brain that are in actual minute by minute, day to day thinking are those parts of the brain that have to do with cognition. That means thinking, thinking about stuff, the normal stuff that we come across every day. There's another really interesting study that was done more or less the same time, about 2 or 3 years ago, that shows that iodine levels in the brain very slightly increase as we age. And some scientists suggest that it could be due to an increase in transport of iodine from the blood to the brain as we age, leading to an increase of the minimum iodine in the brain. And they also proposed that this is a protective mechanism, largely because iodine has very powerful antioxidant and neuroprotective properties. There's another fascinating thing about the studies that were done about iodine. One of these studies, the one published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease, suggests that higher iodine levels in the brain are associated with a lower risk of cognitive impairment and dementia in older adults. Now, iodine is an essential nutrient for thyroid function generally, and adequate iodine intake is important throughout all of life. What these studies are pointing out is that as you age, there is a demand by the brain for more iodine, and it may be that demand occurs because the brain is trying to protect itself against oxidative stress and the problems of an aging brain. In addition, there is apparently a relationship between where the iodine concentrates in your brain and your ability to think clearly, period. Take a look at this from another viewpoint. If I were to ask you, do you believe in the American jurisprudence system? Do you believe in the U.S. court system? Most people will generally say yes. Do we think that the court system does a pretty good job in separating fact from fiction, culpability from innocence? And most people will say yes. In fact, I would say in the most objective sense, our jurisprudence system is probably the most effective and certainly the fairest in the world. It's a model for great systems in other countries. If I ask those same people if that court system ruled in over 60 instances that the election of President Joe Biden was valid, proper, and not filled with duplicity and falsehood. The court records show that, in fact, all of the courts who have looked at this have ruled that the election of President Biden was valid and there was no cheating, or very little cheating, not enough to make a difference. However, approximately half of America believes that the election was stolen through fraudulent voting, stolen from former President Donald Trump. Can you simultaneously believe that the American jurisprudence system is really a great system and is fair and just most of the time, and believe at the same time that despite the 60 plus reviews by the various courts, including mostly courts whose justices were appointed by Donald Trump, that the election was not stolen from President Trump by current President Biden? Most people can't put those two ideas together. That is, they can simultaneously believe that the court system is fair and just, and believe at the same time that even though the court system ruled on the fairness of the election of President Biden, that in fact the election was stolen from former President Trump. How is it possible that one person can believe such extraordinarily disparate things within the same brain? The answer to that is that it is a problem of cognitive functionality. That is, that the key features of the brain that are involved in cognition are not working. Why are they not working? Apparently, it has something to do with how much iodine people take in their regular diets. Therefore, if you want to be at the very top of your game, and you want to be able to make appropriate, fair, reasonable, well-reasoned cognitive judgments and distinguish one thing from another and be able to point out similarities and differences, make sure, absolutely make sure that you get enough iodine. Thank you for listening.